phone?
Yeah.
If you think we can survive 6 more weeks?
Wow.
But anyway, I'm glad you're here. As my friend Joe Schultz used to say, I'd rather be here than in the best hospital in the county. This illustration we saw from Mark, this narrative that took place, I think is really fascinating. Jesus and his followers were observing human behavior related to giving. And Jesus observed the wealthy people giving much, which would seem to be in their favor, except that they had much to give. So for people who had a lot to give a lot, there's nothing particularly sacrificial about that. It's not that it's bad, but it's not sacrificial. Jesus didn't indicate that the wealthy should even give more than they were given. But he did indicate that they gave out of their wealth. The widow's giving, however, was noteworthy because as little as she gave out of her poverty. Which means that proportionate to her income and assets, she put in more than all the others. And that's the point. It's the contrast between people who had a lot, who gave a lot, and this woman who had very little, but proportionately gave more than the people who gave a lot. Any other phone calls? Yeah. But the woman had 3 circumstances against her. Number one, she was a woman. She was a woman in a man's world, a male culture. Secondly, she was poor. And thirdly, she was manless. She was a widow. So, cultures then and now are not kind to the poor. The culture is not kind to widows. The culture is not kind to children or people with deformities and weaknesses. But Jesus used this anonymous woman as an example for all time. An example of, we'll call it pious generosity. Generosity in the name of God. Giving in a way that is remarkable, not in how much you give, but in how you give. And this example reminds us that it isn't always the big, flashy acts by celebrity believers that gets Jesus' attention and approval. Sometimes it's the small things done by what the world thinks are insignificant people that makes a big difference in the kingdom of God. Like so many things about God's kingdom, remember last week I told Jerry Newman's definition of the kingdom of God is that invisible upside down kingdom. And I like that because it's not the way we expect it to be. It's not what we know. It's not what we're familiar with. It's a different kingdom altogether. But like so many things about God's kingdom and how different it is than the world, we've been duped by our cultures to think that our small position, our small gift, our small ministry can't be used by God in a really big way. this is a paraphrase of something I learned from actually one of our textbooks on marriage from a Christian author. And he related this to marriage. And he says, usually marriages don't crash because of a blowout, but because of a slow leak. So I just wanted to extend that thought, because that's usually what happens with life. A flat life is not usually caused by a blowout, but by a slow leak. Let me explain. It's usually not crises and tragedies that cause us to doubt and to lose faith. It is usually a succession of little things that cause a loss of faith and spirituality, spiritual vitality, that leave us susceptible to faith loss in times of crisis and tragedy. It's not the crisis and tragedy itself, but it's the little disappointments and erosion of faith, the lack of spiritual disciplines. And so when the crisis comes, we aren't ready for it. We aren't prepared for it. And we've been weakened by ignoring the small aspects of our faith, whether it's prayer or Bible study or fellowship with other Christians, whatever it might be. And that does carry over into human relationships. In relationships, I call this the erosion of small courtesies that can be that leak in relationships. For instance, small courtesies like please, thank you. By the way, I don't think no problem is an acceptable equivalent to you're welcome. Thank you. Oh, no problem. You ever get that? Sir and ma'am, when speaking to someone senior. Small courtesy. Opening car doors for your wife. Opening the doors of a room. One of the interesting things that catches my eye is oftentimes, I almost always walk down the steps and walk up to the door with my clients when they leave. And it's interesting when I walk down with a couple, and remember, they're in couple counseling. That's why they came. Couple counseling to help improve their relationship as a couple. And usually, almost all the time, they walk out the door, he walks over to the driver's side, he walks over to the passenger side. He opens his door, he opens his door. Not a big thing. It's the little thing. That erosion of small courtesies, the neglect of small courtesies. I don't know. I would imagine that when they were courting, he opened the door for her. Not a big thing, but usually it's not a big thing. A little thing. I point out the chair for her as a restaurant. And here's one, small courtesy. Signaling before you change lanes. Remember, we used to have to do it this way. Remember that? Some of you remember. What's happened to people that they can't? And by the way, that's one of the biggest causes of traffic accidents, is people who change lanes without signaling. Little courtesy. Little issues. See, in the Song of Solomon, chapter 2, verse 15, it's the little foxes that spoil the time. It's the little things that erode intimacy and closeness and affection and appreciation. The erosion of small courtesy. And it's the erosion of the small disciplines in our faith, in our life. You know what they are, little things, and sometimes reading God's Word, listening to Christian music, building your faith, and keeping your faith up to date. So when, not if, but when the crisis does come, you're prepared for it. You've maintained your spiritual vitality, and you can go through the crisis without spiraling down. Neglecting the small acts of kindness and love and affection can cause a relationship to slowly become flat and in need of repair. Let me give you some other examples of what I'm talking about. The Colorado River is a relatively small river compared to the Mississippi or the Ohio River or the Columbia River. But over the years, it's carved this magnificent wonder that we call the Grand Canyon. The smallest part of your body are the cells. Healthy cells equals a healthy body. If there are too many unhealthy cells in your body, for instance, too many cancer cells, then your body will become sick with cancer. Healthy cells equals a healthy body. It's the small things that we need to give attention to. Churches with healthy cell life have healthy body life. So the same thing is true. Who despises the day of small things? Every great human accomplishment started off small. What we call an idea. Edison, Ford, Firestone, Disney, Gates, Steve Jobs. The great accomplishments, the great successes they have had all began with a small thing. An idea. An idea that we could call a dream. But they didn't stop with the idea. From that idea, they developed a plan. And we could call that a scheme. And then they gathered together other people committed to help them fulfill that dream. We could call that a team. And together, they found success. But if you backtrack the success to the beginning, it'll be an aha, an idea. I think this would work. I think, and it grew from there. But it started off small. Your small idea can become a big success. Your small gift can meet a big need. Your small acts of kindness and love can help build a great marriage, a great family, a great church. Your small contributions to your school, your workplace, your community can help build a better world. It doesn't have to be something big, dramatic, but something small, given in faith. Your small acts have the power to make a big difference. I always like this quote from Dr. Robert Stewart. Anyone can count the seeds in an apple, only God knows the apples in the seed. Your small act, your small gift, your small contribution is that seed that you plant in God's kingdom affairs. And you have no idea what can happen out of that seed that you plant. See, in God's kingdom, that is God's reign in our world, small things matter. Seemingly unimportant people are used in big ways. A shepherd boy defeated a trained warrior with 5 small stones. He didn't even need all 5 of them. A small nation, Israel, takes a big place in history. A small movement of followers of Jesus changed the world. A small man, who we call Paul, was a huge influence on first century Roman leaders. The things that matter to the world, wealth and status and position and power, are worth nothing in God's kingdom. The cross, a symbol of loss, humiliation, and powerlessness, becomes a symbol of victory, power, and freedom. But whatever was to my profit, I now consider loss for the sake of Christ. Again, what Paul is saying here is, I had the position, I had the status, I had the wealth, but it all counts for nothing in God's kingdom. God's kingdom is about small, being used in big ways. The transformation of our small efforts to become big accomplishments. No, I can small. But your contribution, your tithe, everyone else's tithe, becomes a big, life-changing, church-changing, world-changing account to God and to good. So, do the small things well, and you will make a difference for God. Do small things well in your relationship with one another, and you will make a big difference in your family, and in your life, and in your workplace, and in your life. These small points, Jesus said, we do more than the people who have more. Your small gift, your small contribution, your small prayer, whatever you have and whatever you do, and be used by God in ways you enjoy and you'll never know, but will bless and will multiply and will use what you give to the purposes of God. Lord, none of us are captains of industry or political powerhouses. We're regular people, ordinary people. But what you have taught throughout your history is that we're the kind of people you use in ways that go well beyond our natural talents and gifts. So take what we give and bless and multiply in you. Help us to give with generosity. Help us to give with humility. And help us to give with a sense of hope that whether it's the offering basket, or whether it's in marriage, or whether it's small acts of kindness to a co-worker, to a partner, to a friend, that you will use all that we do in a big way